AI is likely going to create a greater and greater temptation for all of us to become very lazy. If you want to truly understand how AI is being used, don't look at companies, don't look at even digital native companies and so on. Look at young kids. OpenAI put up some stats recently about their usage. There's something like 80% of their usage is coming from people who are below 27 years of age. How they are using AI.
Yesterday I was in Mehsana and I was meeting some kids and they were coming from far off villages to Mehsana to meet me. And I was surprised that everyone knew about AI.
So I think that's going to be the dichotomy, Shraddha. I feel that this is one of those times in our lives where the temptation to relax, to leverage all of this wonderful stuff that we are being handed on a platter is going to be incredibly high. But this is the time to truly become awake and start to become good at understanding how to harness this technology correctly and get the most value out of it.
The role of GCCs had become very important in India. What are, some of the things that you think will be important for all these entities?
So the whole GCC model is really about thinking of India creating centers of excellence here. Now for major banks, major telcos, global brands, when we work with them, the decision makers who are engaging with us globally are based in India. That's a model that requires us to think of these companies as having, dual centers of gravity, one in their home nation and the second in India.
Ashutosh, very good talking to you.
Great to meet you.
Yes, though we are meeting virtually. I want to ask you, there is this amazing word now that I have got to know while researching on the company, Search AI. And Elastic has positioned itself in Search AI space. Can you tell us about this and how is it different from other hyperscalers and platforms in generative AI stack? How are you different?
So the most important thing to understand first is what search is all about, right? So when you think about search, what you most associate it with is probably Google and searching across the internet. And the reason why search exists is because there's a lot of data, there's a lot of information that is inherently very messy. And you see that on the internet, but you also see it within your organization. You see the kinds of files, the kinds of machine generated logs, etc., that are really difficult to analyze, that are really difficult to do anything with. And that's what search is about. So just like Google is all about searching for information on the external web, Elastic, we are experts at searching for information across all of your unstructured, messy data within the company. Now, what's happened with generative AI is, as you think about these large language models really are trained. They only know what they have been trained on. They only know the data that was fed to them during the training process. And all of that data, by definition, ends up being publicly available external data. They don't really have any concept of your private business data, your private business context. So to make these AI systems usable, you have to connect them with your private context, with your private data. And that whole process is called context engineering. And that's really where Elastic comes in. So for us, it's all about taking this power of search, the ability to connect your private data, just the right, documents and so on, with these AI systems. That's what we do. That's what we're experts at. And in that area, we're vastly differentiated as compared to any of the hyperscalers, any of the other, tech companies that you hear about. And that's the reason why we've become, the gold standard, if you will, for this particular area.
Okay. You've spoken about this enabling AI native enterprises. So tell us about that and how, would you define AI first native enterprises? And how do you balance the AI innovation with cost for all these enterprises?
So it's fascinating. Personally, I believe that AI is probably the most revolutionary technology that we've seen since the creation of the internet 30 plus years ago. When you think about these AI systems and what they're able to do, to reason, to do inference, take vast amounts of information and allow you to think. Now you can automate all kinds of systems. So when you consider what I would think of as AI native companies, these are companies that are being created to take existing business processes, whether they are recruitment, onboarding of employees, coding, back-end system development, customer support, sales engagement, partner communications, whatever it might be. All of these processes have typically been manual or at best semi-automated. And what AI is enabling these companies, these AI native companies to do is to fully automate those systems. So now you have AI that is able to generate the specs for a job. It's able to interview candidates and select the right candidates from amongst the pool. It's able to then help you onboard the employees that you hire and train them to be really good at what they do. If it's an engineer that you're hiring, it can help them with coding practices and help them become efficient and productive faster. If it's support, it can help support engineers or support technicians become much better at what they do. And that's really what's going on. So it's a paradigm shift that's making it very important for existing incumbent technologies or companies to embrace AI as well. And it's created this wave of innovation that's moving the entire industry forward. And you're right that when you see this kind of massive shift, there tends to be a desire to sometimes overinvest. And there are legitimate questions about cost and how do you manage cost and how do you make sure that you're able to do all these things efficiently and you can actually have a payoff at the end through all of these heavy capex investments that are required for AI. And we are seeing that every day. We are seeing companies having to thoughtfully make decisions on how much they invest, where they invest. But you know what? Just like the internet, everything that was involved in the internet or everything that was involved in cloud computing, costs keep coming down and costs are continuing to come down even for AI systems. So I'm very confident that AI is going to be here to stay. It's going to help businesses become far more efficient in time. It is going to require new ways for us to train and develop our employees. But that's just a natural course of change that happens every time you have a big technology shift.
Yeah, yeah. Ashutosh, can you take us through an example, one of your customers, if you could talk about that? How has the search AI helped them either develop a new revenue stream or develop a competitive advantage?
Yeah, let me start by giving you some examples that we have publicly talked about, and then let me give you some examples of companies in India. DocuSign, they have been around for some time now. They created this space, as you know, of electronic document signatures and so on. But one of the things that they were trying to do was to make sure that they could create new revenue streams for their business. And in the past, traditionally, all you could do with any document that you signed using DocuSign was you could search for keywords, metadata tags in that document, because most of the document was just stored as an image and you couldn't really search through it. What they wanted to do was provide their customers with deeper insights into information that was being stored in DocuSign. So they built a AI-based system on top of Elastic, our technology. And through the use of our technology, we make everything within each document that's signed and stored in DocuSign fully searchable. So I'll give you an example of what that lets them do. If DocuSign has a customer that's an insurance company, and they have insured houses on the Florida coast in the US, and there's a hurricane approaching, and they want to quickly analyze what are all the houses that they have insured that are within the hurricane zone, and what is their total insurance risk. They are able to just run a search query that reads through all of their documents, searches through it, understands based on geolocation which houses they've insured fall within that boundary, automatically read through and understand what is their total exposure and insurance coverage for all of those houses, and come up with an analysis for them. Something that would have taken them weeks can now happen in minutes. So it's a very powerful offering that they have created, and that has become a new revenue stream for them. So that's one example. Another really interesting example that makes me very proud of the work that we do was told to us by one of our public sector customers in the United States. So there is a agency called Homeland Security Investigations. This is part of the Department of Homeland Security in the US. And one of the things that they're responsible for is for stopping human trafficking crimes. And typically what ends up happening is, if somebody sees some young person being taken against their will, they'll call a hotline and say, hey, I think this person is being moved against their will. This might be, an abuse situation. And then these agents have to look at CCTV footage. They have to look at, social media feeds. They have to look at, calls that might have come in and try and combine all of this information to figure out who moved whom where might this crime have started from, and where can they apprehend the person and liberate the person who might have been taken against their will. Because of the technology usage, of the AI usage based on our technology, they were able to improve what they call their solve rate, the rate of solving these kinds of crimes by 40 times. And so you imagine one investigator now being able to, effectively solve 40 times the number of cases in the same period of time as they were. So massively powerful. And then switching to India, like one example that I find pretty exciting is I was talking to an e-commerce customer who was telling me about how in tier 2, tier 3 cities, instead of shopping for things on their platform using keywords, they now have image search where I can just take a photo of a dress that I see and upload that and say, I'm looking for something that looks like this, right? And they can do it in Hindi, or they can do it in Marwadi, or whatever language they have. Because in the past, you needed to be proficient at English. You needed to be able to use the web really well and know exactly how to give your queries in an English. Now, because of the ability to snap photos or pick a photo from a magazine or whatever, it's allowing people who are less sophisticated with technology to start to get value from these kinds of e-commerce systems. And that's democratization, right? That's democratization of the kinds of services that we offer. And I think this is what AI is able to do now for us.
Thank you so much, Ashutosh, for explaining this, because somewhere what I hear is that with Search AI, with Elastic, you're just making platforms far more intelligent in the output that is coming out and what you can serve to your customers, right? Again, brilliant. All the three examples are so uh, good. Somewhere it makes me wonder that the human intelligence part, right, will mean just has been taken over by AI. Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to be taken over. Like, I think of it, Shraddha, as a continuum, right? So on one end of the continuum, you're going to see what people describe as co-pilots or assistants, where really it's the human being who's driving the process, and they're going to use AI to help them do the process better. On the other end, you are going to have, more autonomous systems. I wouldn't describe them as fully autonomous, but more autonomous agents that are actually driving the process. And humans are in the loop for verifying the results or for approving the decisions. And in that continuum, you're going to find AI systems, all along that continuum. Now, I live in San Francisco, where famously Waymo, the self-driving car company, has been operating for many years now. And so I see these fully autonomous cars that are, giving people car rides. You just go on your Waymo app, you call them just like you call an Uber, and a driverless car shows up. You get in and it drives you perfectly to exactly wherever you want to go. There's no human in the loop. And it's fascinating. The first time you sit in it and you see the steering wheel turn on its own and the car figure out, how to weave through traffic, it's a little disconcerting. But this is what is actually in the future going to reduce the number of accidents on streets. Because, human beings do silly things. People still drink and drive. People still, get upset if they're emotional and might drive in rash ways. Machines can be programmed and trained not to do that. So there is a lot of value in bringing this kind of intelligence to systems, but I do believe that it'll be a continuum, and it's not going to be. Yeah, I'm not a subscriber to this AI doomsday theory. I'm actually much more of a techno optimist.
Yes, yes. And now with you, I'm also becoming very optimistic because at the end of the day, what you're saying is that it will make us more effective. All of us, in
That's right.
whatever we do, we will become more effective and more outcome driven. Yes. Ashutosh, Elastic has deep open source roots, and now with all these large enterprises, and everyone is looking at also proprietary models. So, how do you balance that? And tell us, what does your open source root, what advantage does it bring to you?
We are big believers in the power of open source. Like open source has a few really nice qualities to it. So first thing is you are creating something with the involvement of the community, with your users, with other developers. And when you're able to do that, you learn faster. So we started with this idea of creating a search engine, and very quickly, our community showed us that this same search engine, which we thought was primarily going to be used for, searching through documents within your organization or for e-commerce search, that it could be used for observability. So monitoring of live business applications to make sure that you can keep them running really well. Our community showed us that you can use that same technology for cybersecurity, for detecting cybersecurity threats within all the data in your organization, and then helping remediate or protect your systems and your data from cyber attacks. So there is this community angle that we find to be incredibly valuable, because it amplifies your creativity, it amplifies your knowledge and moves you forward faster. The second thing about open source that we find to be incredibly good is it creates a massive wave of awareness of your technology. And our my chief revenue officer, Mark, he always says that he's never gone to any customer where there wasn't some developer in that organization who already knew Elastic, who had already used Elasticsearch, and was a fan of our technology. So for us, it's rare to go into an organization where nobody knows us. And that's an amazing strength to have, because once you go in, even if they've never done business with you, they know who you are. They've used the free version of your technology, are fans of it, and are much more receptive to use it. And that same beauty of open source, the reach that it creates, the awareness that it creates, the community value that it creates, is now also being brought to AI. So you're seeing a lot of companies really lean in on the AI based way. It's not open source. People will often think of it as open weights in the model area, but you have companies like Mistral, you have the Llama models from Meta, and these are making it possible for us to bring down the cost of using these AI systems, because that's the other nice thing that open source does. It reduces the barrier to entry. It reduces the cost of the technology. And that is good for the community, right? That is good for industry. And so Linux was a great example of what happened in open source. Because of Linux, cloud computing became possible because of the development of an open source based OS operating system like Linux. And our aspiration is to do the same for AI.
Yeah, yeah. I was speaking to a senior government official here in India, and he was talking about, like, one of the areas that we need to work on and put more focus on is data governance, security, cyber security, because we are generating so much of data. I want to ask you, you alluded to this in your last answer, but I want to ask you that as Elastic, how do you look at this? Because everyone is increasingly becoming very aware and wants, and that's why have a proprietary model built for themselves. So how do you work with those companies, and how do you look at these problems?
One of the most important things that we care about is choice for our customers, right? So there's never going to be one answer that fits every situation. So whether it's a government agency or a commercial organization, For either price reasons or for governance and privacy reasons, you might have a need to go with an open source model in certain use cases or proprietary models for other use cases. You might have the need to run those models in your own data centers or in public cloud. You might have the need to protect and control who gets access to those models and under what situations. So there's an access control element to it. There's a privacy and security element to it. There is a deployment element to it on where you're running it. So all of these things involve choice. And to me, like that's the most important thing that we do. So you can run our technology in public cloud. We support our technology on all the hyperscalers. You can run it in your own data centers. And that's something that's pretty unique about Elastic and comes from our open source roots. So we are not just a cloud only kind of model. We'll support everything. And for that reason, we do a lot of business with government agencies across the world, of course, in the United States, but then, all countries, Western countries, as well as in India, in Singapore, in Australia, in a lot of the countries where we have deep roots and where we do a lot of business. Government agencies love our technology for that choice, which, like I said, is incredibly important. It's going to become even more important as AI becomes a differentiator, not just for companies, but also for governments.
Yeah, Ashutosh, while you were answering, I was thinking Elastic is elastic about the choices
It is.
the customers want to make. Yes, yes. The role of GCCs have become and now even more, it's become so important in India. We're seeing such phenomenal growth of GCCs. Just want to understand from you, how are you working with them? What are, some of the things that you think will be important for all these entities moving forward? And especially if you could give us a context in the next 12, 18 months, what do you think would be relevant, important, and all these companies should look at?
Yeah. So the whole GCC model is really about thinking of India not just as a place to have large development centers because of the large amount of talent that we have in this country, but it's about creating centers of excellence here, right? And that's the big change that's happened in the last 30 odd years. And now for major banks, major telcos, global brands, banks, top 10 banks in the world, top 10 telcos in the world, etc. When we work with them, the decision makers who are engaging with us globally are based in India. And for that reason, what we end up seeing is not only are we working with these banks in New York or in London or wherever, but we're also working with their decision makers here in their India GCCs in Bangalore or in Mumbai or wherever they might be. And that's a model that requires us to think of these companies as having, dual centers of gravity, one in their home nation and the second in India. And so we are looking at how do we change our models, our processes to serve these customers better. So just to give you an example, I'm here right now in Mumbai, but until day before yesterday, I was in Bengaluru for our user conference, Elasticon. And one of the events that we had was just a CXO level meeting with senior executives from multiple GCCs. And we had over a dozen of them who all joined us, and we were talking about how AI is shifting their priorities. What are they focusing on? And they're doing real cutting edge development using AI technologies for their companies here in India. And so I would expect us to invest more in India from a services standpoint, from a sales and support standpoint, from an engineering standpoint, to be able to support these organizations better. And as visa rules change, as people invest more in different parts of the world, I would expect that, the importance of India is only going to continue to grow with this GCC model.
Yeah. Ashutosh, talk to us about your India, India the operations, and how are you looking at partnerships. What are some of the partnerships that you are forming here, and just to get a sense of Elastic's operation strategy in the Indian market?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have had a presence in India for a very long time now, and we are a globally distributed company. So we have employees in we're just under 4,000 employees worldwide, and these employees are actually distributed in 42 different countries. But India is now our second largest population of employees in the world, um, very closely behind the United States, which is still number one. But India is a very close second. And that's happened only in the last 4 or so years. We've grown pretty rapidly in India. So we think of India in two ways, with two lenses. First is as a market itself, right? So as a market, you are seeing, India is the fourth largest economy in the world, huge focus on technology, huge focus on AI. Obviously, that drives a lot of interesting evolution here. And we do a lot of business with Indian companies, especially digital natives with the vibrant VC, venture capital ecosystem here. We are seeing a lot of traction with digital natives, with enterprises, and so on. The GCC angle that we touched upon also adds to the importance of India as just a market that we sell in. The second lens with which we look at India is as a hub of talent, right? So just if you think about STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, the number of people with STEM degrees that Indian universities, Indian colleges are able to produce on an annual basis is exceptional, just because of the population of the country, but also the focus that historically we as a society have had on math and science. And so we find great talent here, and we see a lot of value in tapping into that talent. So we have every function represented here, whether it's engineering, support, services, sales, marketing, finance, HR, even legal. We have people here from every possible function, and I would expect that to continue to grow. So Karthik Rajaram is our head of India operations. He's based in Chennai, but we have offices in Bangalore, in Mumbai, and in Delhi. And typically, we see a very strong customer presence across all of these cities.
Yeah. If all of us, the way the world is changing, I would say earlier we used to think in cycles, and the cycles were maybe in a couple of years, then it became a year. Now I'm talking to a lot of leaders, and they're saying is that, we have to now start thinking in quarters and start thinking in months. I want to understand from you, Ashutosh, you've been in this space, you're leading in this space, and the technology world in the last 30 years has definitely, made such a change on humanity as such. But we have to look ahead, and all of us have to be ready for the world which we are living in, and to be prepared and constantly be ready for the changes that are happening. What are one or two things that we should look at? What are one or two things that we should, be ready with? If you had to advise, if you had to tell us to consider to look at.
So this is something that I tell our team members at Elastic, and I tell it to my family members as well. If you want to truly understand how AI is being used, don't look at companies, don't look at even digital native companies and so on. Look at young kids. Look at the teenage population in any country, because OpenAI put up some stats recently about their usage, and it was a insanely high number. I don't remember the exact stats, but there's something like 80% of their usage is coming from people who are below 27 years of age. So that just gives you a sense of, the younger generation that's going to truly be AI native. And it's really instructive to see how they are using AI, how they are leveraging the technology, at times how they're becoming dependent on the technology. So there are good and bad things that we have to learn from, what's going on right now. And by learning, by seeing what's going on, I have a few observations. The first thing is AI is likely going to create a greater and greater temptation for all of us to become very lazy. Because it can grade your homework for you. Hey, it can actually do your homework for you, right?
Right.
You can learn about anything by asking questions to AI. You can use it as a sounding board. You can use it for finding recipes. You can use it. I mean, it's anything. That is magical. But you know what it does? It tempts you to not do primary research. It tempts you to not look for exact details on where did the source of information come from. It tempts you to not have that diligence of, learning by first principles that is so important in life. And my firm belief is that as AI becomes a bigger and bigger part of our lives, it is going to be massively important for us to become very good at systems thinking, at
Mm.
understanding how to use AI correctly, at understanding how to verify the output of AI so we can be good at leveraging it in the right ways and not using it where it can cause chaos and damage. All of this means that instead of getting lazy, now is the time that we have to really wake up and start to act with massive urgency, start to be far more aggressive at, being ahead of this technology swing. So I think that's going to be the dichotomy, Shraddha. I feel that this is one of those times in our lives where the temptation to relax, to leverage all of this wonderful stuff that we are being handed on a platter is going to be incredibly high. But this is the time, whether it's for business, whether it's for educators, whether it's for governments, whether it's for, social workers, whether it's for parents, societies, to truly become awake and start to become good at understanding how to harness this technology correctly and get the most value out of it. Otherwise, it could be a painful few years in the future.
This is one of the most nuanced and brilliant answer that I've heard in a long, long time on AI, on technology, and we as workforce, because we are all working across the world, and very rightly pointed. In fact, Ashutosh, I have to tell you, yesterday I was in Mehsana, this district next to Gandhinagar, Ahmedabad, which is Prime Minister Narendra Modi, he comes from there, that district. And I was meeting some kids, and they were coming from far off villages to Mehsana to meet me. And I was surprised that everyone knew about AI and ChatGPT they were using, and these kids were 14, 15, 16 max. And that's where, to your answer, this is such an insightful answer. This is happening across the world. This is the trend. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, I have a question for you. You represent to us an Indian who we are proud of. You come from here. You are now in US and a very successful professional. And I read about your background. You've done so well in the tech space, in the leadership roles that you've been in. What would you tell to all the people, all the young people today in India who are getting into the job market, who are looking at building their career, their future? What is it that we could learn from you? Because one thing I have to call out, that talking to you gives me a sense that you're very, very grounded. You have your humility intact, and you're, on top of your game. Tell us some things that we can pick up from your journey.
Uh, Maybe I'll say the same thing that I tell my kids every day. It's you can't quite always know the path that you're going to follow in life, because life takes interesting and strange turns at all times. But what is most important is to always stay curious. Curiosity is one of the greatest values that we can inculcate in ourselves. If you are always interested in learning, if you don't take anything for granted, then it always moves you forward. It always helps you progress, ahead, keep moving ahead. Always be curious. The second thing I always think about is, truly never forget where you came from, because it is so easy in life to
Yeah.
think that everything that you have accomplished is because of how awesome you are, right? And it's like human nature to go like, man, I'm so cool. The reality is that, I always reflect back on when I was graduating with my bachelor's, and I did my undergrad at VGTI, and before that, I was in Parla College in St. Xavier's High School here. And in every class, in every grade that I was in my opinion, I wasn't the smartest kid there. There were a lot of other incredibly brilliant, incredibly smart kids. Everybody took a different path in life. And because of the choices that they made and just, how things worked out, different people ended up in different places. What that tells me is it's not just about the person, but it's also about things that happen around them, things that they might be able to control, but things that they can't control. So it is really important to be humble and know that at the end of the day, the most important thing is control what you can control and don't think that it's all about you. There is something to be said for, counting your blessings, like being grateful. And the third thing, always stay hungry. It's like in this world, I think with technology, things move so fast that if you aren't constantly trying to figure out how can I learn more, how can I move faster, how can I be even more intent on driving greater value and greater change for the cause that you care about, it's easy to fall behind. The pace is blistering. And as long as you do these three things, in my opinion, you're going to get it right. And your path might be different, but it'll be a fun journey. And that's all that matters.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much. And last, I want to ask you, if I tell India, what does India mean for you? And what do you see as, one or two big opportunities ahead of us as a country?
I feel like I'm the son of two nations at this point, right? So I've been living in the US for almost 30 years now. I have a wife, three beautiful children. My life is there, but my parents, my sister, her family, they all are here, right here in Mumbai. So every time I'm here, I visit them. I spend time here, and I truly feel like I'm a son of both India and the US at this point. Yeah, India has so much promise. India has so much promise because it's full of people who are trying to make something of themselves. There is an inherent hunger that I see in the people that I meet. There's also a sense of pride. And I want that pride. I hope that pride is always appropriately directed. Because pride appropriately directed can create magic, can create some
Yes.
amazing things. And when you have a large population, and there's a famous statement, demographics is destiny, and demographics is in favor of India. So if that large population, well educated, can be harnessed for driving through things like AI and so on, the entire country forward, the potential here is amazing. It shouldn't be very long before India is the third largest economy in the world, maybe the second largest. And that is what the country should be aspiring for. I'm proud to see the way successive governments have continuously invested in technology sector, in the country forward, in having more business friendly policies. And you're seeing the value of that now. You're seeing the vibrant venture capital ecosystem. You're seeing companies being created here that are global brands or aspiring to be global brands. How amazing is that?
Yeah.
So it means the future to me. India potentially has the meaning of this is what it means to be forward looking. That's what excites me.
Wow, you're hitting it out of the park with all your answers now towards the end. Last, before I let you go, to everyone here, and mostly to enterprises, government agencies, different stakeholders, if you had to, in your way, and pitch Elastic, what would you say?
At the end of the day, the greatest value that you're going to create in the next 10 years is going to come from how you leverage AI. And the magic in AI comes from your data, which is why AI is so powerful, because the real value in AI comes from your proprietary, your specific data and information. And we can help unlock that. Elastic is the platform that's going to help you unlock your data connected with AI and create that magic. So we look forward to partnering with our customers, our community, our developers here in India. And I think it's going to be an exciting next 10 years.
Great. Thank you so much, Ashutosh. It was really, really very good talking to you. Yes.
Likewise. Thank you very much.